I'm Tommy D from the KnicksBlog.com. On the heels of the Knicks season coming to an end, we will discuss things moving forward with our good friend Dalen Cuff. Dalen, how you doing, sir?
Obviously a little down today, but I'll be all right.
So they come out in the first quarter. Bibby starts making shots from everywhere. Relatively good ball movement, traditional baskets, as you would say.
Yep.
And then one of two things, well, a few things could have happened. Miami turns up the heat, pun intended. Melo really tries to take it upon himself to win the game, and obviously that was something that they struggled with for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's something that's happened all year. I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's kind of what, when you go back to the beginning of the season, pre-Lin, we talk about all the time, and I read some of my posts from earlier in the season, and be like, I would always talk about the ball movement in the first quarter, but second quarter or third quarter would start to really stall out, rely on Melo, and resorting to just be an isolation game. And you really can't win that way against a great team. Now, he did a great job in Game 4. He shot the ball pretty well, but he took 31 attempts. Amari, 7 attempts. J.R. Smith was in the tank at 315. But you can't rely on Melo every night and night out against a team of the Heat's caliber. And that's the problem we've really relied on here the last couple weeks, is a little bit of fool's gold. You know, when you look at April and how well Melo played, but you kind of knew that if you hit the Heat or you hit the Bulls or one of those two teams in the playoffs, how much can he really put us on his back and carry us to a series win? It's not real likely. So then you take a look forward, you wonder what Woodson's going to do to adjust going forward, because that can't be the answer next season.
Well, that's, we'll work under the assumption right now that Woodson is the coach for next season. He, with Joe Johnson when he was with Atlanta, did have the same type of system, same structure. Ride the horse as much as you can, and you go from there. And that does kind of freeze out the other players. Obviously, we got to see what's going on with Jeremy Lin coming back as the point guard. But if you're the coach, or even if you're in the front office, what is it from a structure perspective offensively that the Knicks need to do? I mean, can they combine Melo and the first unit with maybe Amari pick and roll in the second unit? Not having Amari come off the bench, but just a balance of 8, 9, 10 guys who can just rotate in and out.
I think they absolutely can do that. I think it relies on having a point guard. You got to have a point guard. They need to find a guy that can run the show. And I'm comfortable with Lin being that main guy and having somebody else come and be the second kind of backup guy that can run the show. But you need a great quarterback. And I think I talked to you guys about this off air a few minutes ago. If you look at Jordan's first 7 years, he didn't win a title either, but put butts in the seats. Everybody loved watching him. 61 points in playoff games, 63 points in playoff games. But he couldn't get over the hump. He couldn't beat good teams, the Pistons. He couldn't get past them, because it was all him all the time. They got a coach in there that put a system in place, allowed him to showcase some of his skills and make other people around him better. And that's what you're going to have to do. Woodson's going to have to talk to Melo and be like, hey, you've tried this your way for 7 years. And I've believed in my stars too, but we're going to take a step back and figure out how we're going to play as a team. Just like D'Antoni brought in Woodson to help his defense, maybe you bring some coaching changes, you bring in a guy to help you structure your offense a little bit better. And look at Melo being a guy that helps you, but the quarterback runs the show. The point guard runs the show. Get some secondary, get Melo involved off the wing, let him come some screens, run some sets for him. You can do different things through the course of the game. It can't be based on isolation ball, and both those guys got to change. And
that's my thing is, were they better offensively with D'Antoni? I mean, they were a really, really good offensive team with D'Antoni. Pre-Melo trade and then after the Melo trade, it wasn't quite as good, but the structure and the open system allowed for guys to get off and get different shots. Landry Fields averaged 14 points a game for Mike D'Antoni. I mean,
Steve Novak.
And Novak.
There you go.
Are they a better defensive team with Woodson, or are they just an offensive average team and an average defensive team moving forward with Woodson?
I think they can be good at both. I think they can be a good defensive team. We know he understands that side of the court, and they've gotten so much better. Tyson Chandler, the first Knick ever to get Defensive Player of the Year, and you saw he's the quarterback of their defense. He's back in that back line, talking out switches, being there in the paint. He was fantastic all year long. Great job. Offensively, like I said, maybe you bring in a guy to help you think through some of these things, but you don't have to be an average team, because I think you can get guys to buy in, because you saw what Lin was able to do. It wasn't just Lin, but him just having a guy create made so many people around him better. And that's where I think Melo, that's the hindrance right now. Melo doesn't just make guys any better. If anything, he makes guys a little worse. Like, guys don't perform at the same level. When you look at that stretch of games that Lin played, you said Novak, we talked about Landry Fields. Guys really, Amari, obviously, like, guys were all playing better when he was in there to facilitate. I think you need that guy that help make guys better around you, and that'll make your offense better overall. So they don't have to be average. They can make that step in both sides of the ball.
It's a fair point, but for me, what I love most about Melo and having Melo on the team is that in the fourth quarter of close games and big games, he can close. And he's proven he can close.
You're absolutely right, and that shouldn't be taken out of his hands. It's situational ISOs, whether it's late in the shot clock, late in the fourth quarter, you want the double team to come, you want your star to have the ball, totally fine with that. But for 48 minutes, you got to have a different system. You got to have something you can rely on that's not just that.
Kevin Harlan said something last night that we talked about before, that Mike Woodson teaches isolation, which is, I mean, that may be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. The Heat obviously did a great job of getting them late in the shot clock, but you don't necessarily want to teach isolation. It is a result of how the ball moves in the within the offense.
Yeah, it was funny when I heard that. I almost fell out of my chair. I mean, I've never heard they like that in my life. You don't teach that. You almost resort to it. Again, late in the shot clock, late in the fourth quarter, or if your star needs a look, he needs a touch, he needs a chance to get totally fine with that. But you don't teach that. You teach maybe how to play out of it in situations, how to play off the double teams, where the kicks are, where the open man's going to be, the kick rotation, drive and kick again. Like, you talk about those things, but you don't teach isolation as the principle to your offense. That leads to a 4-1 series loss and only one real competitive game.
But my thing is, you can get guys opportunities. You can get stat the ball in the post in an isolation situation, but he's not a great post player. He's got to improve. He can't just be a pick and roll guy. Same with Tyson Chandler. I mean, to Melo's defense, he is really the only guy that they can throw the ball into, and he can make something happen. He can create a double team. If Tyson Chandler can be a post player that causes double teams, then you'll see more movement inside out. And I think that's a big thing that they got to work on moving forward.
That's a huge point. And I think you're right. I don't want to sound like I'm crushing Melo right now, because it's not. He did everything he could, the best he could with what was given to him, what the coaches planned for him. But we talked about last year when LeBron struggled in the playoffs. I've already talked about he needed to have his post game. Well, he went and worked on his post game. His efficiency rating, highest in the league. He worked on how to be a more efficient basketball player. Amari and Chandler, you got to do the same thing. You got to work on your game. You've seen you guys, and Chandler even said it the other day, I have to be a better offensive player with my back to the basket. He should be crushing it all summer, just working on his game, left-handed hook, right-hand hook, get a strong move on each block and a counter to each one, both those guys, so you can, again, help Melo and help the coaches say, okay, we don't have to go through him. We can go through other guys. And you're absolutely right. Those guys got to step up offensively.
Knicks are going to have to make some acquisitions this offseason.
Yeah.
But we're real happy to have you on the team this year.
Thanks, man.
Great job with everything. We appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
And remember, to get all your information on the Knicks and a little NBA, check out the knicksblog.com, part of the SNY.TV blog network. I'm Tommy D. We'll see you next time.